So yesterday you were discussing about succinylcholine. I told you it is a depolarizing agent. I'll just repeat in case someone, if you guys didn't understand. So what is happening here is, let's suppose it is a depolarizing type of smooth muscle relaxant, meaning it will cause smooth muscle relaxation, but it will take a little different route. Okay, how it does so is, let's suppose this is the effector muscle. ठीक है, let's suppose the muscle is like this. ठीक है, this is the muscle, and on the muscle you have NM type of receptors. ठीक है, let's suppose these are NM receptors, right? Both of them are NM receptors. Now what is happening here is succinylcholine, if given, ठीक है, this fellow will, so let's suppose I have a capillary running beside me here, and I'm giving IV succinylcholine. Okay, so I'm giving SCH here. I'm abbreviating it as SCH. Okay, succinylcholine, and I have the drug here. What this fellow does is it enters um, your synaptic space, and see initially यहाँ पर you have acetylcholine, right? You have acetylcholine molecules. Let's suppose those acetylcholine molecules are like this. ठीक है, these acetylcholine molecules were coming out, attaching to NM receptors and causing muscle contraction. We are trying to cause smooth muscle relaxation or skeletal muscle relaxation. Sorry. So to cause skeletal muscle relaxation, what we'll do is we'll give IV succinylcholine. Whenever we give IV succinylcholine, this fellow will come into your synaptic space. It will attach to NM receptor, so it will compete with acetylcholine for that same spot, and succinylcholine will attach instead of acetylcholine. So यहाँ पर आगे succinylcholine attaches. What ends up happening is depolarization of the muscle occurs to a point where initially the muscle will contract. Okay, what will happen is your sodium gate will open, your potassium will be let out. So potassium comes out, sodium goes in. One second, let me write it a little better. Sodium will go inside, potassium goes outside into the skeletal muscle and out of the skeletal muscle, and initially there will be a slight contraction. But what happens is, as succinylcholine levels increase in your synapse, as more and more succinylcholine molecules come and attach here, what ends up happening is there is a lot of sodium that is coming in. There is a lot of influx of sodium, and at one point of time there will be down regulation of this receptor. In a way, what will happen is there will be a saturation point till which your muscle will contract, and after that it will immediately start relaxing. Okay, it will not be able to contract anymore, and it will relax instead of contracting. That is how succinylcholine will cause smooth muscle relaxation. So I'll repeat once again, just in case you did not understand. Okay, let's suppose I have acetylcholine molecules here. These are ACH molecules. Okay, normally whenever acetylcholine molecules are coming and attaching to NM receptors, they are causing muscle contraction. Okay, succinylcholine क्या करता? Succinylcholine is a particular type of choline which does not get degenerated by cholinesterase. So if you remember, in this synaptic space we have something called cholinesterase enzyme which can break down acetylcholine. After acetylcholine has done its function, it is able to break down acetylcholine. This cholinesterase cannot affect succinylcholine. Succinylcholine will be broken down by one particular enzyme present in your blood called pseudocholinesterase. Okay, I'm just abbreviating it as PCHE. That is pseudocholinesterase. It is not true cholinesterase. It will only break down succinylcholine. So let's suppose I want I want to create smooth muscle contraction in my patient. Sorry, skeletal muscle contraction in my patient. What I will do is I will give IV succinylcholine. As soon as I give IV succinylcholine, what happens is this succinylcholine reach the space where neuromuscular junction is. Now you know, in neuromuscular junction you have here NN receptor present in your on your neuron near the axon terminal, and you have NM receptors present on the muscle. This is the muscle, okay, skeletal muscle. Now succinylcholine molecule attaches to this NM receptor, competes with acetylcholine for that same position. So instead of acetylcholine attaching, succinylcholine will attach to that receptor, and initially it will cause slight contraction by causing depolarization. Okay. During that period of time, what will happen is sodium will come inside. There will be a lot of influx of sodium. At the same time, potassium will rush out. Potassium comes out. Initially, there'll be slight contraction. Okay. After this, what happens is, as your muscle gets saturated, at one point of time, instead of getting contracted, it will relax. That is how smooth muscle relaxation will occur. It will completely depolarize your muscle to the point that instead of contracting, it will completely relax, and for the duration for which that succinylcholine molecule is attached, your muscle from now on will only be relaxed. Okay, until and unless you are able to remove succinylcholine, or your body is able to metabolize succinylcholine. Generally, it is short acting. Within 5 to 10 minutes, this action will be over. That is why yesterday I told you, initially it will cause hypotension and bradycardia. Later on, it will cause tachycardia because of sympathetic ganglia stimulation. Okay. Initially, it will cause slight contraction, but as time goes on, within 1 minute or two, it will cause proper skeletal muscle relaxation. That is how succinylcholine works. Okay, I hope अभी समझ में आया. uh, Coming to adverse effects of your succinylcholine. One second, let me clear this out. Yeah. So adverse effects of succinylcholine will include post-operative pain. Okay, post-operative muscle pain specifically. Okay. There is hyperkalemia. This hyperkalemia happens because whenever succinylcholine is given, I told you potassium is coming out. Whenever potassium is coming out, that fellow will go into systemic circulation. It is coming out of muscle and entering the nearby blood vessel. When it enters nearby blood vessel, it will increase the amount of potassium present in the blood, causing hyperkalemia. Okay, this is a problem in patients who have congestive cardiac failure, or who have severe problems like arrhythmia and all. If you are giving succinylcholine, be very, very careful, because it can be very dangerous in patients with CCF. Dangerous in patients with congestive heart failure. Okay. And other conduction problems like it can be arrhythmia, it can be LVH, anything. Okay. So in all of those, you have to be careful with succinylcholine. And another thing it can cause is malignant hyperthermia. So what malignant hypothermia is something we came across in general anesthetics as well. I told you what happens is whenever you give one particular drug, sometimes there will be severe muscle spasms because of a lot of release of calcium inside that muscle. Okay, especially from your sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is the ER of your muscle. Okay, endoplasmic reticulum of your muscle is called sarcoplasmic reticulum. Whenever some drugs are given, especially drugs like halothane and drugs like succinylcholine, because of excessive release of calcium inside the cell, there'll be a lot of heat being generated, and your muscle will undergo severe spasms. So just write it down here. Sudden increase in body temperature. So not just muscle, body temperature altogether, along with severe muscle spasms. Okay. This is because of release of calcium, intracellular calcium, from your sarcoplasmic reticulum. Especially if you are giving, let's suppose we are giving succinylcholine for surgery, and you are combining it with a general anesthetic like halothane. So both of them can cause malignant hypothermia, which can be fatal. Okay, it will trigger malignant hypothermia, and the patient might die. At that point of time, what you can do is IV dantrolene can be given. IV dantrolene. This will act as a it will act directly against succinylcholine and this thing. Okay, it will be a life-saving drug in malignant hypothermia. Okay, it will immediately reverse the effects of both halothane and the reverse the effects of your succinylcholine, wherein you'll be able to stabilize the patient. Now, oxygen inhalation and immediate cooling of the body helps as well. So if you have a patient who is going into malignant hypothermia, you have to make sure that there is proper oxygen inhalation, and you have to externally cool the patient's body. So you literally have to use ice packs and cool them, or else, because the body will become so hot, their literally their brain will fry, because there'll be proper signs of what you call muscle degeneration and brain damage because of excessive heat being produced. Okay. Sometimes in some patients, succinylcholine can cause succinylcholine apnea. The patient will not be able to breathe properly. Okay. This specifically happens when, I told you, there is a particular enzyme that is present in blood called pseudocholinesterase. Now, cholinesterase is something that will break down. It is a particular enzyme that will break down acetylcholine. But succinylcholine will be broken down by pseudocholinesterase. Pseudocholinesterase will be present in your blood. In some patients, what happens is they do not have pseudocholinesterase, or they have atypical pseudocholinesterase which is not working properly, because of which whenever you give succinylcholine, there will be a lot of effect from succinylcholine. Because normally whenever you give one particular drug, let's suppose you are giving drug D, this fellow will ultimately undergo metabolism and it will get excreted, right? यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा, because that metabolism is dependent on one particular enzyme which is present in your blood. If that enzyme is not working properly, or if that enzyme is not present, that enzyme being pseudocholinesterase, succinylcholine levels in blood will remain high for a long period of time. Okay, instead of acting for a short period of time, which is 5 to 10 minutes, it will act for a longer period of time. That can create a lot of problems. That one such problem is succinylcholine apnea, where the patient will not be able to breathe properly. Okay, so these are some of the side effects of your succinylcholine. Now coming to drug interactions, please feel free to ask questions if you are having doubts. Drug interactions, obviously general anesthetics general anesthetics augment the function of SMRs. Augment ka matlab they will increase the function of SMR. So basically they will boost the effect of SMR. If you are let's suppose giving smooth muscle relaxant with general anesthetic, generally you should give it before as a pre-anesthetic. If you are giving it with the general anesthetic, you might want to decrease the dose of the smooth muscle relaxant, or you have to make sure that you are timing it properly. Either one of those. Generally you have to be careful with what type of general anesthetic you're giving. Meaning, if it is propofol or halothane, या क्या type of anesthetic there है, and whether or not how much it is affecting smooth muscle that smooth muscle relaxant. Sometimes what happens is you will think that your smooth muscle relaxant will give let's suppose, I'm just randomly putting a number to it, let's suppose it will give 10 units of relaxation. Okay. In the presence of general anesthetic, instead of giving 10 units of relaxation, it will give 20 units of relaxation. This can lead to flaccid paralysis. Okay, if you are not able to control this, you are essentially causing extreme amounts of relaxation in your body, wherein a lot of muscle tone is lost, which can be a problem in itself. Okay, so that is why the drug interaction is general anesthetics. Just be careful when you're giving general anesthetics with smooth muscle relaxants. Only specific smooth muscle relaxants can be compatibly given with general anesthetics. Then anticholinesterases. So anticholinesterases, specifically like neostigmine. What do anticholinesterases do? What will they do to acetylcholine? So that question lies, what do anticholinesterases normally do? What is the function of anticholinesterases? Here I'm giving an example of neostigmine. You can take any other physostigmine, neostigmine. There are several ones. क्या करते लोग? They are inhibitors of what? I'll repeat the question again. What do anticholinesterases do to acetylcholine levels in your body? If I give anticholinesterase, what happens to your acetylcholine? Increases, decreases, remains the same? What happens? Okay, if you are not able to answer it right now, I'll note this point and I'll ask you tomorrow. So, function of ACHE anticholinesterases. Okay, someone answered. Breakdown. You have to be specific, ma. Inhibitor या breakdown किसका? Breakdown of acetylcholine. Breakdown of what? किसका breakdown कर रहे हैं? What are they doing to acetylcholine levels? Okay, find out and tell me what do anticholinesterases do. That is when you'll be able to understand its reversing function on succinylcholine. Okay. Another thing is that aminoglycosides. Okay, I have two more answers. Breakdown of acetylcholine. Okay. Hydrolysis of acetylcholine. What ends up happening to acetylcholine levels? एक बार चेक करके बोलो मेरे को. Anticholinesterases क्या करते हैं acetylcholine levels को? We just finished that chapter. Aminoglycosides, you haven't come across aminoglycosides. They are a type of antibiotics and calcium channel blockers. These will also you will study in what do you call cardiology when you that is there in pharmacology, cardiovascular drugs. So CCBs and aminoglycosides, both of them will potentiate SMRs. Potentiate का मतलब उसका effect बढ़ा देते. Okay, both aminoglycosides and calcium channel blockers will increase the effect of smooth muscle relaxants. So this is about succinylcholine. Hydrolysis of acetylcholine inhibit cholinesterase. Are you sure? They will inhibit cholinesterase. Acetylcholine will get hydrolyzed because of that. If you are telling it is inhibiting cholinesterase, what happens to acetylcholine if you inhibit cholinesterase? So a question arises, what do cholinesterases do? उसलिए check करके बोला. Which are responsible for hydrolysis of acetylcholine. Okay, what happens to acetylcholine levels? Hydrolyze करते पक्का acetylcholine level को. Okay, they are, let's suppose cholinesterase are acting. Pratima, your voice is breaking down.
It decreases the breakdown of acetylcholine.
Yep. तो क्या होता है acetylcholine levels को? फिर टूट गई आवाज. I have one neuron. Let's suppose this is cholinergic neuron. I have acetylcholine here. Okay, this fellow is coming out. Here is another neuron. This acetylcholine is going and attaching to this receptor present on the second neuron and it comes out. Ab bolo, what will cholinesterase do? Cholinesterase is CHE. So Vamshi is telling that it sends the information to whom? और क्या information भेजता? To brain. About? तुम लोग बहुत complicate कर दे रहे इसको. देखो यहाँ acetylcholine का molecule है ना, इसको cholinesterase break down करता to nerve cells. The acetylcholine molecule here is broken down by cholinesterase into acetic acid and choline. ठीक है? this choline is taken back into your presynaptic neuron so that you can make another molecule of ACH. अब समझो, if I give anticholinesterase, I am giving anticholinesterase. It will inhibit this particular enzyme. ये enzyme अगर inhibit हुआ, if you are inhibiting this enzyme, you'll end up saving this acetylcholine molecule. So ACH levels will increase. Simple answer. उतना complicate क्यों कर रहे हैं? Hydrolysis ये वो. If you give anticholinesterase, acetylcholine levels will go up because you are breaking down or you're stopping what is breaking down acetylcholine. So if you have more amounts of acetylcholine, you know, is a direct smooth muscle or skeletal muscle contract. What do you call? Yeah, it will contract skeletal muscle. So it is exactly opposite to succinylcholine. If you have something like neostigmine or edrophonium or any anticholinesterase, either reversible or irreversible, they will reverse the effect of succinylcholine, because succinylcholine will end up causing smooth muscle, skeletal muscle relaxation, whereas acetylcholine will cause skeletal muscle contraction. I hope you guys understood that point. Chalo, coming to the next drug, which is dandrolene. These are directly acting muscle relaxants. Muscle relaxants. We are still in peripheral muscle relaxants, but those were indirectly acting. This is directly acting. Okay, tuberculin, succinylcholine, all of them are indirectly acting. Okay, they are neuromuscular blockers. These are directly acting. They will directly act on the muscle, and what they do is, so I'll just write the mechanism of action here. Dantrolene, it inhibits calcium release from sarcoplasmic reticulum. If there is no sarcoplasmic, if there is no calcium being released from sarcoplasmic reticulum, try to remember how muscle contraction occurs. If you don't have any calcium being what you call released from sarcoplasmic reticulum, there is inhibition of muscle contraction. Okay, leads to relaxation. Ante, that is the mechanism of action. ठीक है, इससे पहले all the drugs that we discussed were either working on NMJ, or they were working on adrenal medulla, what do you call, autonomic ganglia, everywhere other than the skeletal muscle. This fellow dantrolene will directly act on the muscle itself. ठीक है, it will cause inhibition of calcium being released from from skeletal muscle. Now you know, whenever skeletal muscle needs to contract, it needs to have calcium being released from its sarcoplasmic reticulum. If there is no calcium being released from sarcoplasmic reticulum, your muscle cannot contract, leading to relaxation. That is why this is helpful in case of malignant hypothermia. In malignant hypothermia due to succinylcholine or halothane, or both of them, if you are giving both of them, there is excessive amount of calcium being released. If you give dantrolene, it will do exactly opposite. It will inhibit the calcium release. Okay, that is how it is reversing the effect of halothane and succinylcholine, and if you give it as such, it will cause a direct skeletal muscle relaxation. This is how dantrolene will work. Okay, you can use dantrolene in several instances. You can use it in use includes multiple sclerosis. Ever came across MS? Have you ever heard about MS? Multiple sclerosis? कभी पढ़ा है, कभी सुने? Multiple sclerosis is a chronic autoimmune disorder in which what happens is your myelin sheet gets degenerated by your antibodies. Okay, आपके न्यूरॉन के अतरफ माइलिन शीट जो रहते हैं, in myelinated neurons there is one autoimmune disorder in which your own immune system attacks your myelin sheet, degenerating it, okay, all around your nervous system, because of which you'll not be able to, you'll have several neurological problems. That condition is called multiple sclerosis. and hemiplegia, ठीक है, partial paralysis, hemiplegia. Then you can use it in paraplegia. Hemi is one sided, para is क्या बोलते हैं, नीचे का. Then spinal injury and cerebral palsy. You can use what they call dantrolene in all of these. It will not cure the condition, but you will be able to control the condition to some extent at least. Okay, these are the uses of dantrolene. Common adverse effects that you see is drowsiness. So AD includes drowsiness. You'll rarely find hepatotoxicity. Okay, if you're, it will also cause some dizziness, dizziness, and rarely hepatotoxicity. If you are giving dantrolene, make sure that you perform liver tests before giving dantrolene. In case the patient is susceptible to liver damage or hepatotoxicity, it is better to avoid giving dantrolene. In emergency conditions, you can give, but as such, if you're thinking of giving it as a prolonged muscle relaxant, then you have to make sure that the patient does not have any liver problems and there is no chance of hepatotoxicity. Okay, so that is how your dantrolene will work. Now coming to the last class in SMRs, which is centrally acting muscle relaxants. These include a wide array. So muscle relaxants, these will include diazepam, baclofen, alag classes ke which are acting directly in your central nervous system. Okay, those, all of the drugs that we discussed till now were acting peripherally on your PNS, or they were acting on your muscle, which is also peripheral. This will act directly in your spinal cord and in your brain. Okay, so these will include your diazepam, tizanidine, baclofen, मेफेनेसिन, बहुत रहते हैं, ठीक है, इतने बस है तीन. Now diazepam, you know, is a क्या बोलते हैं, GABA analog. It will cause, it is not exactly a GABA analog, it will cause GABA to increase in that area near that neuron, because of which there is inhibition of inhibition of impulse transmission. We already went over what is diazepam and how it functions. It will make GABA more attractive to GABA's receptor, because of which there is inhibition of transmission. All the three of these drugs, what they will do is they will cause depression in postsynaptic reflexes. So in the sense that you will not be able to get proper transmission from your spinal cord to your peripheral nerve itself. Okay, it will cause problems in your central nervous system itself, or it will cause inhibition in your central nervous system. So if I have, let's suppose this is your brain and यहाँ पर आपका spinal cord है, and let's suppose this is your spinal cord, and out of here is coming your PNS, okay, peripheral nerves. So let me use a different color. Let's suppose this maroon color represents peripheral nerves. Now these diazepam, tizanidine, baclofen, all of them will act either here or they will act here. Let me use a different color once. It will act either here or they will act in the spinal cord, wherein they are acting in such a way that you do not have impulse being transmitted at all. If you do not have impulse transmitted altogether, how can you contract a muscle? Okay, that is how they will work. Diazepam will directly cause what do you call? It will make GABA to attach directly to the GABAergic receptor more. How to put it? It will cause GABA receptors to become more susceptible to GABA, in a way that GABA will come and attach very uh, easily to GABAergic neuron, because of which action potential will not occur. That is how diazepam works. Baclofen will literally act like GABA. So baclofen is a analog of GABA. It will be literally like GABA, and whenever it comes and attaches to the GABAergic receptor, it will cause GABA-like effect. Tizanidine is slightly different. Tizanidine क्या करता? So if I have a presynaptic neuron like this and a postsynaptic neuron like this, let's suppose this is a presynaptic neuron and this is a postsynaptic neuron. ठीक है, यहाँ पर presynaptic neurons पे there are some special type of receptors called alpha 2 receptors, alpha 2 adrenergic receptors. Okay, Now, यहाँ पर we were discussing that we will have cholinergic receptors as well, right? यहाँ पर you will have in the presynaptic you generally have NN, and postsynaptic especially motor end plate है तो NM रहता, or else you'll still have NN type of receptors. Okay, if it is neuron to neuron it will be NN receptor, especially if it is ganglia. यहाँ पर tizanidine comes into this space and it will block your alpha 2 receptor. Whenever alpha 2 receptor gets blocked, okay, it is a congene of choline. Sorry, it will cause agonism of alpha 2. What ends up happening is this area will become inactive in a sense that what you call, it will cause presynaptic inhibition, meaning from here itself, from the presynaptic neuron you will not have transmission of acetylcholine, meaning your neurotransmitter will not be able to come out of your presynaptic neuron. That is what tizanidine will do. If you do not have any neurotransmitters coming out of here, how can you stimulate this? ठीक है, अपने पास प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है इन स्मूथ मसल रिलैक्सेशन, or at least what you are trying to do with smooth muscle relaxation is, especially central one, you are trying to stop the impulse from one neuron to the other. ठीक है, the main way through which you are the only way through which you are transmitting impulses is through neurotransmitter. One way is by stopping action potential here itself by causing chlorine influx. That is what diazepam and baclofen will do by acting like GABA. ठीक है, then you have tizanidine, which will stop neurotransmitter from coming out altogether by acting on alpha 2 receptor. Whenever alpha 2 receptor present on presynaptic neuron is stimulated, agonism of presynaptic neuron, alpha 2 receptor of presynaptic neuron occurs, it will not let what you call neurotransmitters to come out. If neurotransmitters are not coming out, there is no stimulation here, no? Stimulation नहीं हुआ तो how will action potential be formed? Hence, no muscle contraction. No muscle contraction will lead to muscle relaxation. That is how these fellows will work. Okay. I hope you understood the mechanism here. If you have doubts, please let me know, because this will complete our smooth muscle relaxants. The next class will start Parkinsonism, anti-Parkinson drugs. Please feel free to ask doubts. Mamshi, I'm not able to hear you. I can see your microphone is open, but I can't hear you.
सर वो बैक्लोफेन, कैन यू रिपीट?
बैक्लोफेन, अच्छा, अपन लोग diazepam पढ़े जब, I told you what is GABA, right? GABA is a inhibitory neurotransmitter. It will inhibit transmission of impulses, right? Normally, whenever I have neuron number 1, let's suppose I have neuron number 1, N1, and neuron number 2, N2. In between them, there is a synapse. यहाँ पर generally एक क्या बोलते हैं interneuron present रहता है ऐसा, ठीक है? This interneuron is responsible for inhibiting the function. Okay, whenever there is excessive stimulation, this neuron will get activated. It will release a lot of GABA. GABA being its what do you call, inhibitory neurotransmitter. This fellow will come and attach here. It will cause chlorine influx. If there is chlorine influx, you will not have transmission of impulses because of change in potential. You are basically causing drop in potential from -55, it will become more negative, it will become -60 or -70, let's suppose. That is how GABA is working. Baclofen literally acts like GABA. It is a congener of GABA, or to put it another way, baclofen is an agonist of GABA. It will act like GABA. So baclofen directly comes and attaches to this receptor here. So let's suppose you have a GABA receptor here like this, ये pink wala. Let's suppose this is the GABA receptor. Whenever baclofen comes and attaches to this GABA receptor, it will act like GABA, cause chlorine influx, and stop action potential. Okay? Diazepam, on the other hand, is slightly different. It will make GABA more, it will make the receptor more attractive for GABA. Okay? That is what it will do. It will increase the chances of GABA attaching to your GABAergic receptor. Okay? Slightly different, but both of them will cause depolarization, or rather than depolarization, they will cause hyperpolarization, because of which impulse transmission does not occur. Okay? I hope समझ में आया. Anyone else doubts, or if you want me to repeat any particular part? Yeah, 1 second, I'm coming to your doubts. Done? Okay, no problem. चलो ठीक है फिर, if you don't have any doubts.